What's up guys, Will here with Rennthusiast, my YouTube channel that is all about air-cooled Porsche 911 ownership experience. And if you are here today because you are actively in the market for a well-documented, mechanically sorted, guards red, mid-80s Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe, then I've got great news for you because my 1986 911 is actively for sale at the point in time I'm publishing this video. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I've owned this car for about 3 years. I have thoroughly documented my experience with it across a number of videos. I've had some really good times with the car. I've been to rallies in it. I've chased buddies on back roads in it. I've taken it on solo trips up into the mountains, and I've just tooled around town in it. And I've grown really connected to it. These G-bodies, these 3.2s are such great cars. But at this point I've decided to move it along. There's a couple of reasons for that I'll get into here in the next segment of the video. I think there's a lot of honesty and transparency about this car given that it's been featured on the channel, and it's also a very strong example from a documentation standpoint and a mechanical standpoint. So in this video I'm going to walk you around the car. I'll talk you through kind of the exterior stuff. I'll talk to you about the interior. I'll talk to you in a little bit more depth about the ownership history of the car, point out a couple of flaws, a couple of things that make it less than perfect. And then finally at the end of the video I'll share with you where you can find information about pricing and how you can connect with me if you're interested. So whether or not you're actively in the market, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Subscribers are notified every time I publish an air-cooled 911 video, and of course when you give the video a thumbs up and you subscribe, you help this video rank well and help me share the good word about air-cooled. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the next segment of this video. Okay guys, here it is, my 1986 Porsche 911 Coupe in guards red, and yes indeed I am prepared to part ways with this car. I have owned this car for right at 3 years. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I've been really torn about letting it go because I don't know that if I did want to find a really mechanically solid, sorted 915 transmission coupe, I don't know that it would be as easy to find one these days. But I've decided to part ways with this car for really 2 or 3 reasons. So the first one is I recently picked up a 1976 911S in ice green metallic. And it really just doesn't make a lot of sense for me to have 2 G bodies. That car is narrow body and this car has these beautiful Carrera flares on it. But the 76 has a 3.2 motor, which this one has. And so there's some redundancy there. And another reason I'm prepared to let go of it is because of storage. I have a 3-car garage with the lift. It's starting to get cold here in North Carolina, and my wife deserves a spot in the garage. So long story short, it's tough to fit 4 air-cooled Porsches in there. So that's another reason. And then finally, you know, I know some guys love guards red. Guards red's just not my favorite color. I think it looks great on this car. It's absolutely iconic for sure. However, it's just not as unique as I would like. I have found that over the course of my Porsche ownership experience, I'm drawn to unique colors, and so this one just isn't really for me. And if I had to be honest with you, the color is one thing I compromised on when I bought the car. The reason I decided to pull the trigger on buying it was there were several reasons. Number one, it had been very well documented, very well taken care of. It had only had 2 previous owners. When I bought the car, of course, I bought the seller as well. Great dude, still friends with him to this day. And so, you know, even though I didn't love guards, I pulled the trigger. I bought this car from a fellow PCA member. I found that to be a great source for really well-loved cars. And so, you know, when I flew down to Atlanta, which is where this car lived for 7 years before I picked it up, you know, when I put eyes on the car, actually the guards red did strike me as being a little better than I thought it would be, like when I saw it in person versus pictures. So anyway, a little bit on the history of the car. This car was originally purchased at Brumos Atlanta by a gentleman in Florida who kept it for right at 20 years, and then he sold it to the previous owner before me, who owned it for 7 years. He did a lot to the car in terms of just bringing it up to mechanical standards, and I've got all sorts of documentation to support that. He did a great job with the car. So he owned this for 7 years, and then of course I've owned it for 3 years. I have documentation back to day one on this car. I have the original window sticker, I have the COA, I have the original sales brochure, and I have the sales guy's card who sold it to the original owner stapled to that sales brochure. And I also have the original purchase receipt. It shows that the original owner traded in some sort of an old school Pontiac on the car. So anyway, I really love that documentation is there. This car also has the original Valet key pouch with the spare keys, which I thought was really, really cool. So, you know, the way that I think about this 86 is that it's a wonderful kind of time capsule that can still be very, very, very enjoyed. Very much enjoyed. So I would say that this car is in very good condition. I mean, it's not excellent, it's not a garage queen. I've driven the car. I have documented a lot about this car on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked out those videos, feel free. I'll put a link to the playlist about this 86 911 at the end of this video, so you guys can take a look back. If you are interested in the car, you can kind of see my ownership experience unfold there. So very well documented, not only back to day one, but also just, you know, on video on the channel. So hopefully you'll see that, when I own one of these cars, I take very good care of them and I spare no expense. But I do drive them, back to my original point. So I'm going to show you a couple things. I mean, there are some stone chips on the leading edge of this hood. The lower valance there could use a respray if you're interested in, getting it back up to perfect. I leave it or left it that way because, again, I drive these cars. The protective basket down there with that bar, that can be painted easily if you're interested in doing that. But overall, gorgeous, gorgeous car. I had this paint corrected back in November of 2019, and it still presents so nicely. So what else can I tell you about this? There are a couple of kind of like dings that have had touch-up paint put on them. I'm going to see if I can focus on that for you. It's hard to pick up there. And then there's also a little bit of something happening. Let me see if I can get it back here. That is not rust, that is touch-up paint. And speaking of rust, obviously this car is 100% rust-free. I had the windshield pulled and we addressed a tiny bit of surface rust and then put it back in. But the car is a Southern car, and as far as I can tell, just hasn't been exposed to road salt. That usually shows up if it has been, as long as there's not huge rust. What you see is typically like rusted nuts and bolts up under the motor. So along those lines, and I'll show you an image or two of the engine from underneath. The car is bone dry. That's something else I've loved about it. I mean, this 3.2, it's been dead reliable for me, and I have been way out in the country, up in the mountains by myself, and the car has never failed me, never stranded me, and it's just astounding how bone dry it is. These wheels. Guys tend to love these wheels. These are 17-inch Euromeisters. I'm running, I think the tires are Yokohama Advans. They're sticky tires. They've transformed the handling on the car just from the perspective of feeling very, very planted. I have the original Fuchs that came on this car, and I am strongly considering putting those back on. I love the Euromeisters. They're very hard to find. I think they discontinued them, these wheels, and I'm confident at one point in my life I'll pick up another G-body with flares, and so I think I want to keep these wheels. So if you are interested in buying the car, we can work it out. I'll put a set of tires on the original Fuchs and deliver it that way. Let's look at the interior. Oh, something else I want to point out. This door has been painted, and it shows up slightly darker on camera, but when you look at it with the naked eye, it is absolutely indistinguishable. I've included a bunch of footage from various angles on this video so you can see that that is the case. I'm not sure what happened to the door. The car has no accident history. It has no signs of being hit, and I've had several mechanics do work on this over the course of my ownership, and they all agree there's no signs that it's been hit. I don't know what happened to the door. So another thing, when the door was painted, apparently the paint shop accidentally painted the side mirrors as well. So the side mirrors in the door are not original paint. As far as I know, the rest of the car is original paint. But that door is something you'll want to pay attention to if you're interested in proceeding or chatting through the car with me. Let's check out the interior. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that I had some mods to the interior of this car. The car came to me with a Momo Prototipo steering wheel. I just had the car gone through by my mechanic and returned to stock, and so that is the original factory wheel. These are the original seats. I was running Recaro Expert seats in this car, and I just decided that, you know, when I decided to list the car, I figured that the stock seats really needed to be restored, and quite frankly, I want to keep the Recaros for myself. So there you go, beautiful stock interior. This is called, I think it's gray beige or beige gray, as stated on the COA, and that's how it presents. I like that there's a black cap here, and I love the black dash. I think that if you're looking for a black interior, this may not be the car for you, but you know, I have found that the black accents kind of pull that black in, which is nice. What else can I show you? These gauges are very clean. Let's see if I can get that camera to focus. Car has 88,199 miles on it today. An issue that the car has, or that will need attention at some point, is the speedometer does not work until you hit 20 miles an hour, and then the needle jumps up and it tracks accurately. I have confirmed that the odometer rolls under 20 miles an hour, so the odometer is working fine. No problems there. Show you the back seat here. Original factory carpet, beautiful. Show you the headliner. And the camera's picking up odd kind of textures on the headliner with the naked eye that does not show up. So I ran the Wevo short shift kit on this car for much of my ownership experience. As part of the process of returning it to stock, I put the factory short shift kit back on it. That was something else we did. And along the lines of having it gone through, by the way, the one thing that we found was wrong with the car is it needed a replacement axle on the passenger side, and so we took care of that. Now, as far as the motor goes, this car has upgraded AC, so the previous owner spared no expense there. He lived down in Atlanta, it was hot, he wanted better AC. So you see it has a beefier condenser, and it's got a beefier fan up front. AC squirrel cage, I think it's called. He also refreshed some things like this, and there's rubber underneath that has been redone. So all of that is in the documentation. I think I ran the number a little while back. I think he put 25 grand into the car. The previous owner did. So this is it. I'm happy to jump on the phone and chat with anybody about this car or air-cooled in general. The way that you can check out pricing and maybe some more pictures and a write-up is I've decided to list the car on the PCA Classifieds. So there is currently an ad running on the PCA Classifieds for this car. I'm going to put a link to that ad in the description underneath this video. So if you want to learn about pricing, that's there. If you go there and you cannot, or if you are not a PCA member so you can't message me through their platform, please contact me at Rennthusiast@gmail.com if you're interested in the car. Definitely more air-cooled Porsche videos along the way, so I don't know how you found this video, but if you're just casually looking at Guards Red 86s but you're not really in the market, but you love air-cooled content, definitely subscribe to my channel. So if you're interested, let me know, and I appreciate you watching.